What if I told you that the greatest turning point in human history was not a war, not an invention, not even fire, but a decision so quiet no one alive at the time realized it had happened? A decision to stop, to wake up in the same place 2 days in a row, then 3, then 10, then a lifetime. Because for over 100,000 years, humans had no home. No streets, no walls, no sense of this is ours. Only movement, only survival, only the next source of food, the next safe place to sleep, the next sunrise that might not come. And then, somewhere along the eastern edge of the Mediterranean, near what we now call Tyre, a group of humans did something no one had ever truly committed to before. They didn't leave. They stayed. And that decision would change everything. The land was unlike anything they had known before. To the west, the sea stretched endlessly. Not a river, not a lake, but something alive, moving, breathing, calling. Waves crashed against dark stone over and over again, never stopping, never resting. To the east, green hills rose into mountains, covered in wild grasses, low trees, and hidden life. Food moved through this land constantly. Herds passed between valleys, birds circled above, fish gathered near the shore. This place did not push humans away, it invited them. And for the first time, leaving felt unnecessary. Karu had spent his entire life moving. Every few days, sometimes every few weeks, the group would pack what little they had and go, always searching, always uncertain. But here, something felt different. They began returning to the same spot. At first, by coincidence, then by choice. They started leaving things behind: a stone tool, a pile of shells, a fire pit, used more than once. This was new, this was dangerous, but it was also comfort. Nara was the first to shape the land. Not dramatically, not intentionally, but practically. She arranged stones in a loose circle, not for beauty, for function, to block wind, to hold warmth. Others followed. Branches were placed over it, reeds layered on top, earth packed down. The first shelter. Not strong, not permanent, but different, because it was meant to be used again. Seasons passed, the wind changed, the light shifted, but the structures remained. More were added, then more, until one day, without anyone declaring it, a pattern existed, a cluster, a center, a place where people expected others to be. This was no longer a camp. This was something else. A fire began burning in the same place every day, not rebuilt, maintained, protected. Ash layered beneath it, charcoal accumulated, stones blackened over time. This fire became the heart of the group. People gathered around it, not just for warmth, but for presence, for connection. They walked the same routes every day, from huts to fire to shore to hills. At first, nothing changed. Then slowly, the ground began to show it. Grass wore down, soil hardened. A visible line formed, then another, then more. The first paths, the first streets, not designed, but remembered by the land itself. Stone becomes power. Karu noticed something. Some huts lasted longer, the ones with stronger stone bases. So they built them thicker, higher, more stable. Walls became intentional. Placement mattered. The first form of construction knowledge, passed not through words, but through observation. Tools evolve. Stone tools changed, not just sharper, more precise. Flint was shaped carefully, edges refined. Some tools were used only for cutting, others for scraping, others for grinding. Specialization began. For the first time, tools were not just objects, they were roles. The moment everything changed. Sira noticed something small. Seeds, falling, where they had once been gathered. Days later, new plants appeared, in the same place. At first, it meant nothing. Then it meant everything. They began placing seeds deliberately, near the huts, near water, near where they could watch. This was not farming yet, but it was the beginning of control. And with control came abundance. At first, it was small. A few plants growing where they had once dropped seeds, then more, then enough to notice. They began clearing small patches of land, not forests, not fields, just spaces. Spaces where plants could grow without interruption. They returned to those spaces again and again, and something incredible happened. The land began to respond. Food was no longer something they chased, it became something they waited for, and then something they expected. Grain was gathered in larger amounts, not just for the day, but for tomorrow, then for the next. They began storing it, inside huts, in pits, covered, protected. For the first time in human history, there was more than enough. And with abundance came a new kind of wealth. Not gold, not land, but food. Efficiency is born. Hunting changed too. They no longer wandered blindly. They observed patterns, animal paths, water sources, migration routes. Groups coordinated. One to drive, one to trap, one to strike. What once took days now took hours. What once fed a few now fed many. And slowly, survival became easier. The huts changed, no longer temporary, no longer fragile. Stone walls grew thicker, higher, more precise. Some homes expanded, not just one space, but two, then three. Areas for sleeping, areas for food, areas for tools. The first separation of life, the first sense of privacy. The first true stone house. One structure stood different, built stronger, built with care. Flat stones stacked deliberately, reinforced edges, a roof that held. It lasted longer than the others. People noticed. They copied it, improved it, repeated it. This was no longer shelter. This was architecture. Paths widened, not just trails anymore, but shared space, defined movement, from house to center to shore to hills. People expected others there. The first sense of direction, the first sense of place. With stability, humans changed. Not physically, but internally. They began to see each other differently, not just as members of a group, but as individuals. Nara collected shells from the shore, not for food, for appearance. She wore them. Others followed. Bones became decoration. Teeth became symbols. Hair was shaped, marked, recognized. For the first time, people cared how they looked. Emotion deepens. With identity came emotion. Attachment grew stronger, not just partnership, but preference. Jealousy appeared, subtle at first, then undeniable. Eyes lingering too long, glances noticed, tension felt. This was new, not survival, not instinct, something deeper, something human. They were no longer isolated. Travelers appeared. From the south, groups moving out of Africa. From the north, explorers from emerging lands of Europe. From the east, those moving toward Asia. They stopped here, Because this place had everything: food, water, stability. Exchange begins. They brought things, different tools, different methods, different sounds, and in return, they took ideas. The village became something new, a meeting point, a place where knowledge flowed, where culture mixed, where humanity connected. But not all arrivals came in peace. Some came hungry, some came desperate, some came to take. Food stores made the village a target, and for the first time, they had something to lose. A group formed, not chosen, not trained, but necessary. They stood at the edges, watching the hills, watching the shoreline, holding sharpened spears, heavy stones, carved wooden clubs. They didn't seek conflict, but they were ready for it. The first organized defense, the first idea of protection, the beginning of the first army. First conflict. It didn't take long. A small group approached, not visitors, not peaceful, hungry, desperate. They tried to take, and for the first time, this village fought back. Not for survival, but for what they had built. And something changed forever. Violence now had a reason. The sea had always been there, but now it became something else, a mystery. They began testing it, logs tied together, standing, then falling, floating, then drifting, watching how water carried them, watching how wind moved them. Some stayed close, some went further, and for the first time, fear turned into curiosity. Karu stood at the edge again, but this time, not as a watcher, as a thinker. What lies beyond? Is there more land, more people, more life? For the first time, humans didn't just survive the world. They wanted to explore it. Communication evolved, no longer just signals. Now, names, roles, instructions, stories. Meaning expanded. Sounds became structured, repeated, recognized, understood. Language was born, not in a moment, but over time. And with it, memory, teaching, legacy. The village grew, then grew again. More houses, stronger structures, clearer layout, defined spaces. Some individuals became more influential, decision makers, leaders, not declared, recognized. The beginning of hierarchy. Wealth of food. Food became predictable, stored, managed, protected. The village no longer feared hunger, it planned beyond it. This was no longer survival, this was prosperity. Those who left. But not everyone stayed. Some looked beyond the hills, beyond the sea. And they left, taking knowledge with them, spreading it, carrying the idea of the village to the rest of the world. One evening, as the sun fell into the sea, the entire village moved, without knowing it, as one. Smoke rising, voices echoing, children running, food cooking, tools shaping, life happening. Karu stood at the edge, not looking for survival, not searching, just observing. Behind him was something no human had ever truly had before. A system, a structure, a home. Something that would remain, even after he was gone. This was not the first fire, not the first tool, not the first human. But it may have been the first time humans created something greater than themselves. The first village was not built with stone. It was built with a decision to stay. And from that decision came everything. Every city, every street, every home, every nation began right here. Before the world was built, someone chose not to leave.